Hello, Wolfpack fans, and welcome to another edition of Wolfpack Watch. This one, our after East Paulding Rivalry game, Wolfpack Watch. I'm your host, Doug Wood. And from now on, I'm not going to refer to my guest as a guest anymore, because he's my co-host.
There you go.
Co-host, Jim Bob Bryant. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
Coming off of a Friday night win over our arch rival, East Paulding, on the WSB Game of the Week, and we take the game 49-0 on their turf. Coach, we talk about this rivalry every year. You've come to, know this rivalry more and more as you've been here. 49-0 seems not like much of a rivalry, and not that I want to put down East too much, but give me your sense of the game on Friday night and how things went.
Well, I know the last 3 or 4 games they've said that East and North, the game has been decided by less than 7 or 8 points. So for our kids to come out and play the way they did in the first half and jump up 35-0 as a testament to those guys being focused on game day and handling their jobs on offense, defense, and special teams. Once we went up 35-0 at halftime, I reminded them what happened last year, and we were up 20-something-0 at the half, and we kind of took our foot off the accelerator and let East back in the game, and then we had to win it late in the game. We had to hold on. So I reminded them of that. So when we started the second half, I told them it's going to be just like a UFC fight. When a UFC fight happens and they knock a guy down, they don't just let him get back up off the mat. They keep him down. So that's what I told them we wanted to do in the second half. So our kids bought into that and did a great job of keeping them out of the end zone and continuing to move the chains on offense.
Before we get to some of the statistical information from this game, I just want to ask you how you felt about the opening kickoff, because that seems like the only thing that happened for East that was good the entire game. They surprised you with an onside kick and recovered it. What mindset did you have at that very moment when that happened?
Well, we had talked to the kids that day and all week about that, East is like a wounded animal. They're 0-1. They lost their fall scrimmage, they lost their spring game, so a wounded animal is very dangerous, so they have nothing to lose. So we told them to be aware of an onside kick, of a pooch kick, of a fake punt, fake field goal, trick passes, trick plays. We told them to be aware of all that, and then we line up for a kickoff return, and the adrenaline's flowing, and the kids are anxious, ready to get the ball kicked off, ready to get a big return. We were going to run a reverse to Jared Ray, who transferred here from East Paulding, and we're going to run it to East Paulding's bench. So the kids are all excited about that, and then they just lost their heads a little bit, and that was a great play by East. That they kicked the ball, squibbed it forward at 10 yards, and that's going to cause us to change the way we set up our front line on kickoff return. But it was a very well-timed play, and we just had to tell our kids to calm down and relax. That's one play. We tell them that a football game is like a war, that it's won by winning several battles, and every now and then you're going to lose a battle, but at the end of the day, if you win more battles, one-on-one battles, quarter battles, half battles, then you're going to win the war, you're going to win the game. So our guys calmed down after that, got their feet back under them, and played a great first half.
Indeed. With a 49-0 score, obviously the statistical analysis on this is pretty heavy in our favor. Offensively, you had a 300-yard passer. And even your backup quarterback came in and threw for almost 60 yards, didn't even throw an incompletion and threw a touchdown. You had 2 100-yard receivers. You had several running backs that scored touchdowns. Talk about the offensive output in this game.
Well, I thought our kids did a great job of moving the chains, and the first series we had the ball. We turned the ball over on an interception on a tip pass that our quarterback threw it, hit the receiver in the hands, just went over his head a little bit, and we talked to our quarterbacks all the time about never throwing a short ball long, never throw a long ball short. So that short ball was a little bit long. They made a play, and thank God our defense kept them out of the end zone. Because that was 2 short fields we gave them to start the game. And then our offensive line again did a great job blocking up front, opening up holes in the running game, and then Kyle managed the offense really well, led offense. After that interception, he came back and completed over 80% of his passes after that first drive on offense. was without one of our starting receivers, Kellen Altenreef, and then Bradley Stillwell steps in his spot and has over 100 yards receiving and does a great job blocking on the perimeter. And then one of our other starting receivers, Riker Brown, we moved him to defense after an injury in the secondary last week, and Riker came in and did a bang-up job, did a great job, brought a little bit of aggression to our defense that we needed in the secondary. And, Jared Ray, caught 4 touchdowns and 3 of them were called back. And then, his 4th one finally, we didn't do anything wrong on the offensive line or in the secondary with a holding penalty or something like that. So we were able to get him in the end zone against his old team. And, Tanner Bentley is our deep threat down the field. And Jack Margelli made his first start and did a great job blocking and catching possession routes. And then, we rotated through 3 running backs again. And all 3 of those guys do something good, different. And all 3 of them had good games. And we look to continue to build on that 3-headed monster at running back.
Before we get to the defensive side of the ball, talk a little bit about the penalties, because it seemed a little bit choppy offensively, where we were killing ourselves, not only the touchdowns being called back, but just in general. Are we, and I know we talk about the referees in some of the games that we've had in the past, and I'm not wanting to get into that too much, but do we legitimately have sometimes a focus issue on some of our penalties? Are we killing ourselves too much to the point? I mean, I know we didn't do it this game because it was way out of hand, but in a tighter game, those penalties are going to come back to haunt us.
They are, and like I said, the game of football all the way through with no instant replay, it's a human element comes into it. Sure. From offensive standpoint to a defensive standpoint to a coaching to a referee standpoint, and the referees made calls during that game that they thought were penalties, and obviously, us on the other side of it, thought some were warranted and some weren't. And I'm sure that happens with every team every Friday night, and I'm sure East had a couple of penalties called against him that they thought was not warranted, and we're no different.
On the defensive side of the ball, obviously we pitch a shutout. 2 individuals that you highlighted to me, Matthew Hoffman and Riker Brown. Obviously, Riker switching over from offense to defense to fill in for injury, but both of these players played outstanding on Friday night.
They did. Matt Hoffman's one of my favorite players to watch on defense because he's always around the ball. I mean, everywhere the ball is, Matthew Hoffman is there. And, he's not the fastest player on the field. He's not the biggest player. But for a linebacker, especially playing outside, and we ask him to rush off the edge, play the run game, and drop into pass coverage, he's one of our smarter players on defense and is always around the football, which is what you want in a defensive standout like Matt. And then Riker, stepping over to safety, Riker's got just enough crap in his tank to make him a really good football player, and that's what we like. That's the kind of kids that we like to have on defense. Those kids that have a little edge when they step over on defense. And Riker brought that little edge to us on defense in the secondary at safety. We're bringing him down to the box. He made a couple of big hits. Was everywhere on the field where he needed to be, did a great job. And, what I like about Riker is toughness. I mean, he got hurt in the first quarter, didn't tell anybody he got hurt. He played through it. And that's part of being a good teammate. That's part of football. You're going to get banged up. You're going to get bumped and bruised on Friday nights. But the real football players, the guys that really, truly love the game and they're true football players, not just guys playing football, Riker is every sense of a real football player, a guy that loves the game and is going to do everything he can to help North win every Friday night. Played all 3 quarters with the bruise on his side. His neck was hurting. He had a headache. He was looking for ibuprofen at halftime. We didn't have it, but he didn't complain not one time about, hey, coach, I need to come out for a play here or there. And that's the kind of kids that I love to coach.
Well, certainly a thorough whooping on Friday night. 49-0. That makes us 4 years in a row we've taken a game over East, which gives this class of 2020 an undefeated record for the first time against our arch rival. Rather impressive, and congratulations to the class of 2020 for making that happen. I think that gives us an overall record of against East at 5-5, so we're evening up the overall series. Talk about what's going to happen this week. You're going into a bye week. We don't have a game this next weekend. And what are we going to work on this week in anticipation of our next game a week from next Friday?
Well, we brought the kids in yesterday. We met as a staff from 1 to 3 to prepare for Woodstock. They're open this week as well, so we went ahead and exchanged tapes with them Friday night, our previous 2. So we went ahead and did all of our scouting and breaking down our scouting reports and practice schedules and all yesterday. We brought the kids in at 3. We did yoga yesterday and then lifted at 4 o'clock. And then we gave the kids off today. You know, they really haven't had a day off since we started the summer. And after a 49-0 win and having an open week this week, we decided we're going to give the kids off today. So we gave them off practice this morning, not in the weight room. They're coming during 4th period. We're going to run during 4th period to get acclimated to the heat. And then we're going to start back normal practice tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. So this week we'll go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6 a.m. to 8. Freshmen, JV, and varsity will practice those 3 days, and then our JV and freshmen have games against East Paulding on Thursday. We'll give the kids off on Friday, and we'll bring them back on Monday, ready to prepare for Woodstock. This week will be more of a getting healed up week. You know, we're going to be in helmets, shoulder pads, girdles, and shorts. You know, we're going to try to stay off of their bodies as much as we can this week to try. We've got a couple of nicks and bruises we want to get healed up before we play a good Woodstock team next week, and just shore up on fundamentals and technique more than scheme this week.
So we won't be with you next week because we're off, but let's talk a little bit about that Woodstock game. Well, it'll be here at home on September 20th, Friday, September 20th, against Woodstock, an opponent that we are very familiar with over the past few years. We've played them in the regular season the last 2 years, and we played them a game in the playoffs a couple years ago. Talk about what you anticipate from Woodstock a week from Friday.
They're a very, very good football team. They throw the ball about 80% of the time. They've got, I think, a new offense coordinator, and they're running the spread, air raid, and they're throwing the ball all over the field. They've got a quarterback that can throw, and they try to put you in matchup situations and throwing quads and empty and everything else at you to try to get matchups that they can exploit on offense. They've got 2 good running backs that run the ball really well. They've got some really good receivers. Their offensive line does a good job in protection. So it's going to be a challenge for our defense moving forward. And then offensively, when we play against them, they're based out of a 3-4. Multiple coverages, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then they send a ton of pressure at you. So they do a lot of blitzing out of their 3-4. They walk down safeties and bring them. They blitz their corners some. They try to put a lot of pressure on you offensively to make you make a mistake. So we're going to have to be very sound in our protections and our run game to have a chance to move the ball on them offensively.
Sounds like this could be one of our tougher non-region games that we have. We obviously thought the East game was going to be a little bit tougher than this, but we took care of that. Talk a little bit about the mentality of coming off of such an emotional game, 49-0, obviously the bye week, but then coming back this week. Talk about what you're going to instill in these players to mentally stay tough for what will probably be a little bit tougher game in a week and a half.
Well, we tell them that, every game that we win, we want to celebrate that, because it's tough winning football games every Friday night,
sure,
especially when you're dealing with 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. You don't know what they've got going on in the school building at home, in their minds with their girlfriends or whatever, so it's difficult to reel these kids in every week. So we want to celebrate every Friday night that we get a chance to get a win. And against an arch rival like East Paulding, beating them 49-0. I told the kids, I said, we're going to celebrate tonight. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to celebrate on Saturday. Then we're going to start getting ready for Woodstock on Sunday. So we're going to introduce to them on Tuesday, tomorrow morning's practice, our basic game plan that we're going to start with versus Woodstock, and then we're going to focus on the fundamentals of the game and the technique of how we're going to approach our game next week with them, and then we'll have a normal week of practice next week. It's another game on the schedule, so moving forward, we want to be 1-0 after next week, as we say every week. It doesn't matter what we did the first 3 games or the scrimmage game. Doesn't matter what we do the game after that. Nobody cares about that. It's what have you done for me lately. So we want to focus, put all our eggs in one basket every Friday night and try to win those little individual battles to help us win the war at the end of the day, which is to beat Woodstock and go 1-0 next week.
We're certainly looking forward to a game. I would venture to say the North Paulding community hates a bye week, and probably, Coach, you don't like bye weeks all that much either.
Really,
but as rabid of football fans as this community is, I'm sure they'd rather play Friday night. But we'll take a week off, get our bumps and bruises healed, and then get back out there to Woodstock. One final thing before we get to any last news and notes. How did the week go with our two fans of the week?
It went good. They came in. We gave them a T-shirt, gave them a sideline pass, gave them a couple of wristbands that our kids get. Invited them to come eat the pregame meal with us. And I think they're such fans that they didn't want to be out of the stands with their friends. So, Cole told me, he said, Coach, I might come on the field pregame, hang out with you guys, then I'm going to go back. I'm going to get painted up and go back in the bleachers after that. So after I met with those two students, Cole Shore and Emery Roy, after I met with those two students, I didn't see them that day on game day. So, as rabid of fans as they are, they wanted to be with their friends in the bleachers, which I understand. And, again, thanks to the Navy Crazies and all of our fans. We had our bleachers were filled up with the Navy Crazies before we even took the field for pregame, which is great. And I checked to see if they had pizzas over there. I was going to buy pizzas for all the Navy Crazies, but they didn't in our visitor concession stand. So next week when we play Woodstock at 6 o'clock, I'm going to buy 50 large pizzas to give to everybody that's in the bleachers for the Navy Crazies. So make sure you're here early, supporting our guys, just like you were this past week. We've had great fan support all year, and those kids, probably the best student section in Georgia as far as I can tell. They're doing a great job, and we continue to play week to week. We need your support every week. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely outstanding, and thanks, Coach, for offering that up to the Navy Crazies. Any more news and notes before we get out of here?
No, sir. I mean, we're excited to start the season 3-0, but we tell our guys all the time, it's a one-game season. So next week is going to be a one-game season. We've got to have 3 good days of practice this week, fundamentals, fix some things, offensively, defensively, special teams, and then have a great week of practice next week, rolling into Woodstock.
A week off, 2 more weeks of non-region play, and then guess what? Region play after that, and it'll be a little bit tougher road to hoe. And we'll see where we measure up when we get to region play and start playing the big boys. We thank everybody for joining us this week. We look forward to seeing you guys out here September 20th against Woodstock. Come out and support us as we try to go 4-0 and keep the winning streak alive. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Go Wolfpack.
Go Pack.